Stacey David's Restoration Series is brought to you by Steel Rubber Products, helping restore the car of your dreams.
Hey, welcome to the Gears Restoration Series. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most important and one of the most overlooked areas to building or restoring a vehicle. And that is weather stripping. Now, I know some of you guys are thinking, weather stripping? Really? I would think that the engine or suspension or metalwork is more important. Well, they are important, but if you're going to build something that you're actually going to drive and enjoy, and the doors and windows shut well, and the heat and air can actually control the temperature inside, and there's no squeaks or rattles or air or water coming in, then you need to understand weather stripping, because it's something that you're going to have to deal with, whether you're working on a simple level 1 project or an advanced level 5 project. So, first thing that we're going to cover is why you need weather stripping and the purpose that it serves. The typical vehicle is made up of body panels of metal or fiberglass, and some of these panels, like doors and hoods, are made to open and close. Weather stripping not only provides a cushion to prevent metal-to-metal contact, but it also acts as a seal to keep out dirt, air, and moisture. Then there is glass, like windows and windshield. These not only need to be held in place on the body and sealed, but some of them need to be able to open and close as well, and not let in dirt, air, or water. This is all made possible with weather stripping. All right, there's basically 5 different areas of weather stripping in a vehicle. And we're going to start with the most obvious, the front windshield and the back glass. Now, if you're working on something that's 1980s or older, chances are the windshield, the back glass, and maybe even some of the side glass is held in place with a big rubber gasket that goes around the glass and then seals to a flange in the body. When that gasket gets old and hard, it'll crack, allowing air and moisture to get in around the glass and the metal. This creates road noise and leaks. Fortunately, the fix is relatively simple. Replace the weather stripping. Now, to remove glass that's held in with a rubber weather strip gasket, you need to carefully cut around the perimeter of the gasket to release the glass so you can remove it. And once the glass is out, you'll need to look over the mounting flange and make sure it's solid. If there's rust or damage, that needs to be replaced or fixed before you put new glass and weather stripping in. Cleaning up a solid windshield frame is just a matter of scraping away all the old rubber, glue, and sealant, and make sure there is paint covering any bare metal. If there's any damage to the flange, it can be easily straightened with some hammer and dolly work. If the frame is rusted, it'll need to be repaired with new metal, and a shear, a sheet metal brake, and a shrinker stretcher are the tools that you'll need to make replacement panels to weld in once the rusty metal is cut out. Okay, with the flange and the windshield frame cleaned up and repaired and painted, now you're ready to put in your new rubber and your glass. Now, a lot of people think that since you're putting new rubber in, you need to put in new glass as well. And that's not necessarily the case if your old glass is in good shape. But you need to look it over really carefully, because you're not just looking for holes and cracks like this. You're also looking for these scratches that happen over time from windshield wipers and all kinds of other stuff. So if it's bad, now's the time to replace it. Now, one question that people have when it comes to replacement glass and weather stripping is, where do you find it? Well, this is where you're going to have to do a little research and find a company that specializes in the vehicle you're working on. For example, this Jeep glass came from Quadratec because they specialize in Jeep parts. Replacement weather stripping we got from Steel Rubber, because they make weather stripping for just about anything on the planet. All right, the best way to install a windshield is to install the gasket on the glass, then run a string around the channel groove in the rubber with the ends crossing at the bottom of the glass, and then tape them to the inside of the glass. Then drench the gasket with soapy water for lubrication and set the assembly in place on the bottom flange. Starting at the bottom allows you to deal with the hardest to reach area first and allows you to use gravity to help slide and seal the window in place. Now, carefully pull the string ends to pop the rubber over the flange. Now, as you work up and around the sides, have someone push in and down on the glass from the outside to help the rubber seat over the flange. And that's all there is to it.
There we go. Beauty, beauty, beauty.
Now, one thing to keep in mind, on a lot of cars, the front and back windshield gasket not only holds the glass in place, but it also serves as a clamp to hold the headliner. And if your headliner is good, you can just use a tucking tool and tuck that headliner back into that new rubber and you're good to go. However, if that headliner is bad, obviously now would be the time to replace it. But you got to be careful here because this could spiral into a complete interior redo that you might not be ready to do. So make sure you're doing your planning before you end up going down the restoration rabbit hole. Okay, the second area that you're going to find weather stripping on a vehicle is in the door window glass. Now obviously this is a different approach than the windshield because the door glass has to be able to seal and it has to be able to move up and down. So here's the component you're going to have to replace if that's not happening. Since the door glass will need to move up and down, it uses a U-channel with whiskers in it. Now this does three things. It provides a seal around the glass to prevent air and moisture from getting in. It allows the glass to slide up and down, and it also prevents movement and vibration of the glass. Then on the outside base of the window frame, there will be a rubber scraper to basically squeegee your window of water and junk when you roll it down. Then on the inside, there is a belt line pad that provides cushion for the glass and prevents vibration. Now all of this will need to be replaced when you're restoring a door and you want the windows to roll up and seal like they should. Okay, one other thing to remember, anytime you have a piece of moving glass, it's going to be mounted to some sort of a metal frame. And between that metal and that glass is going to be this rubber filler material. Now what it does is it not only mounts the frame to the glass, but it also keeps the glass from moving and vibrating. So you're going to need to replace that with some new filler material. You can get rolls of this from steel rubber. Also, any damage or rust on the metal frame will need to be restored or it will need to be replaced. Since we are on the subject of doors, that brings us up to the third area where you're going to find weather stripping on a vehicle, and that is the vent window if your vehicle has them. Generally, something 1980s or older is going to have a vent window. Now, a vent window is a lot more involved than roll-up glass because as you can see, at this point you can replace the rubber, but once you get it apart, you're probably going to want to take the frames down and have them restored and re-chromed, and you'll probably want to replace the glass too. And these latches and hardware will need to be restored or replaced as well. Now you're going to find that a lot of this stuff might not be available new. So you're going to have to hit the junkyard or maybe go online to try to find replacements. So as you can see, the restoration of a vent window can get tedious and expensive. So make sure you're planning ahead before you jump into one of these. The fourth area of weather stripping is the door, trunk, and panel weather stripping. This is the rubber seal that goes around a panel and cushions and seals the panel to the car. Fortunately, these are fairly simple to replace, and most of them come pre-shaped and pre-sized, and some even have pins to locate them in the proper position. So, what is the biggest issue that people face when they're installing new rubber weather stripping? Well, gluing it in, of course, because if you do it wrong, it's not going to stay in place and you're going to make a huge mess. So the first question is, what kind of glue do you use? Because obviously there's a lot of choices, right? Wrong. The only thing that you should be using when you're putting in rubber weather stripping is black super weather strip adhesive, in spite of what you may have seen on the internet. Now, I know that black silicone looks similar, it's black, it smells the same, it's an adhesive, and a lot of people use it to try to fix leaky weather stripping, but This is not designed to glue it in. It's a completely different product made for a different application. And that's the main problem that people have with Weatherstrip adhesive. They don't realize how it was designed to work, and there's nothing on the tube that tells you how to do it. So they treat it like silicone, and they just put a big bead right down the center of the panel. Then they just mash the rubber down on top of that. Now, before I do that, notice that this rubber has a natural bend in it from being rolled up. So when you mash it down onto the adhesive, not only do you squish adhesive everywhere, but as soon as you let go of it, there you go. Now you got a mess, because you're not only fighting the natural curve of the rubber, but you're fighting the wet adhesive, and it only goes downhill from there. Weatherstrip adhesive is designed to be used as a contact cement, which means you put a thin bead on the surface and then smooth it out with a popsicle stick or a plastic knife. A piece of masking tape is a great way to protect the surrounding paint from adhesive. Then spread a light coat of adhesive on the rubber as well, and spread that out as well and wait until it gets tacky. Finally, spread another light coat on one of the surfaces and pull up your tape. Then set the rubber in place. Now make sure everything is lined up properly, because as soon as you touch the rubber to the surface, it's gonna stick. Now let's look at the difference. This one is straight, and it's bonded enough to where I can actually pick up this piece of 16th inch steel plate. This one still hasn't bonded. Look at that mess. And if you've ever had to clean Weatherstrip adhesive off of metal, you know what a pain in the butt that is. Fortunately, if you do it right, you never have to deal with this again, and your weatherstripping is going to stay where it should. And the fifth and final area of weatherstripping on a vehicle is an area that a lot of people don't consider to be weatherstripping, but it is. It's the rubber bumpers and adjusters for your hood, your trunk, your doors, that kind of thing. These are the little rubber bumpers and adjusters that not only hold your panels in place and keep them from vibrating, but they also allow you to adjust the fit of the panels. And you're going to find these on doors, hoods, trunks, glove boxes, gas doors, pretty much anything that opens. And once these get worn down and hard, they're pretty much worthless. So replacing these should be something that you do if you want your panels to fit correctly. Okay, that covers the 5 areas that you're going to find weatherstripping on a vehicle. And as you can see, other than those vent windows, it's pretty simple to install new weatherstripping, as long as you have the right tools to help you do it. Take a look. First up are your trim removal tools. These are for removing the metal trim around a windshield or door panels, that kind of thing. Then you have your general prying tools. These you saw us use when we were putting the rubber around the windshield frame. Then you have your panel clip tool. This is for pulling out the plastic panel clips when you're removing door panels or headliners or that kind of thing. Both of these tools are for installing the locking strip in a windshield gasket if the gasket you're using has a locking strip. Then of course this is the tucking tool you saw us use on the headliner. This is nice because it doesn't have any sharp edges, so you're not going to tear anything. Then of course this is the rope installation tool you saw us use on the windshield. This is your super weatherstrip adhesive. You gotta have this to glue weatherstripping in. This is an adhesive for putting on plastic emblems, and this is a bonding agent for gluing 2 pieces of weatherstripping together. Then of course, if you're gonna seal your rubber, make sure it doesn't leak. That's what this is for. This is an adhesive for glass that is glued in and you don't use a gasket. And then of course, with all of these adhesives, it's a good idea to have some adhesive cleaner just in case you make a mess. Well, hopefully that gives you more of an understanding of weatherstripping, where it's located, and how to replace it. Now granted, it may not be as impressive as a monster engine or a killer suspension, but if you want to keep the sound and the weather and the rain outside of the vehicle and people inside riding with you, well, good weatherstripping is what makes that possible.